morning, beautiful people. My name's Javi Fadrilan, and welcome back to the Boson Podcast. With me are my two guests, Kat Molo and Vier Barreiro. Now, Vier and Kat, what are your pronouns to start off?
Well, obviously I go by she, her.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Vier?
I go by they usually. They or she is fine, but recently they is more. I think.
Do you guys want to give a brief introduction to yourselves for the audience?
Oh, introduction. Okay, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
You can go first.
Okay. Yeah. I'm Vier Barreiro. What else did I say? I'm a third year humanities student. I had to think about it because of the whole 650 program. Third year humanities student. I'm in like 3 orgs, I think. Just to recall. I'm 21 years old. Gosh, I had to recall how old am I? 21 years old. Yeah, studying at UA&P.
Right.
Okay, I'm Katerina Molo. I'm a first-year entrepreneurial management student.
First
I was
year.
in junior college, but I shifted out. I'm 18 years old and I'm in 2 orgs.
Two orgs. Alright. So you guys know what our topic today is, but for the audiences at home, we'll be talking about pronouns, or more specifically, gender or preferred pronouns. Now to start, sorry. Very unprofessional. Where do you guys discover your pronouns or preferred pronouns? Like at what age, what medium, etc. Or how did you discover it? Like, for example, I discovered, because I wasn't very versed with this until I discovered TikTok and Twitter. Or in Twitter, you can have your bio with your preferred pronouns, etc. In TikTok, there's a lot of people talking about this subject. So, what about you guys?
Well, first I think we should just clarify that technically everyone uses gender pronouns.
Okay.
I mean, like she just said she, her. Yeah. So is your question when did we discover if we had preferred pronouns?
Preferred pronouns,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Should I go? Should you? Okay. Mine was, when did I think I started thinking about it first year at UAP. I considered it more heavily because before I didn't really think that was a very the whole concept of people using anything other than the pronouns they were called at birth kind of confused me.
Okay.
So I didn't see the point of it. I didn't see the logic to it. And then I started just doing more research on my own. And I was like, okay. And then I discovered more things about myself. Cha-cha. So I think first year of UAP was when I started thinking about it more.
Okay.
And I started to go by other pronouns, I think the year after.
Okay.
Actually, only pandemic was
Early
when I
pandemic.
actually went by. Yeah.
But then, did you have something deep down that told you were? You had an inclination that you were something?
Yeah. The inclination was the early on first year UAP. And then I only actually started acting on it pandemic.
Pandemic. Okay. Oh, what about you, Kat?
For me, well, I've never really thought about it in that way because, well, I don't really go on TikTok and things like that.
Oh.
But I do research.
Okay.
And for me, I do believe that gender identity is actually based on your biological sex. So
Okay.
it isn't really an issue to me.
That's actually interesting and brings us to our, first topic about
Segue.
pronouns. Pronouns and its relationship to our human identity. Now, a follow-up question towards that is, do you think the current available pronouns are deemed insufficient in describing a person? And available pronouns meaning preferred pronouns.
So current available pronouns are she, her, they.
She,
them,
her, they, yeah.
he.
You can also go into new pronouns, for example.
Oh yeah, I haven't delved much. Into
Yeah.
that. Interesting.
Do you guys know about neo pronouns?
No.
Yes, vaguely.
So, neo pronouns are basically to describe a person that has a pre-existing word. So, they're called noun self. So, for example, I would say I'm a bun or bun self, or a vamp or vamp self. And it could also be called, something that's pre-existing. So, fantasy, fiction, or an animal, etc.
Okay.
So, back on the
Yeah,
topic
back
at
to the
hand,
question.
sorry. Do you think these are insufficient in describing a person?
I don't think they're insufficient. In fact, I think that what the traditional pronouns actually, I think they are.
Oh, when you
already
say
sufficient.
traditional, you mean he,
He,
she.
him,
he.
she, her. Yeah,
Okay.
I actually think those are sufficient already.
Okay.
Okay. I think they're pretty. I think the she, her, they, them, he, him. Those 3 are pretty sufficient. Just because. Well, I have yet to do research on neo pronouns, but the reason I think that the she, they, he is already like okay. It's more because the
wait. So you want to include they, them?
yes,
Just to clarify.
as that, yeah. I
Okay.
do want to include that, and I think that would be relatively sufficient. And I'm thinking of this because of they, them. I'm just denoting to that, or referring to that as like a way of identifying as non-binary.
Non-binary.
Yeah, but I think that because if we're talking about the gender spectrum, for example, I think there's just it's enough to denote that if someone isn't a man, a woman, usually they're non-binary, and I think there should
But
be a
don't
pronoun to denote that.
non-binary people also go beyond they and them? Like they have their own set of pronouns.
Yeah, but I think that like that hyper-specific classification is
Okay.
necessary when we're talking about like society at large.
Mm.
But again, this is just like my opinion,
Yeah.
without having done any research yet.
No, it's okay. It's
Um,
okay.
Like it's for me, it's enough to denote that like you're non-binary through a pronoun. I think like making it like hyper-specific. Yeah, I still have to do research on that, but that's just my like initial thought.
Kat, do you wanna add anything towards that?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Let's move on to the second subtopic, which is how do these pronouns help foster the individual identity? And before we go on to that, what is the individual identity? Or what are your definitions of individual identity?
You want
You
to
wanna
go
go first?
Okay, I can go first. Individual identity. It's a mixture of a lot of things.
Okay.
Because it goes a bit hard because I'm a humanities student. I feel like think about this. But when we're talking about identity, there's a lot of factors like your personality, your biological makeup, your friends, your memories. Individual identity, I guess, is a matter of, it's a mixture of, like, just to generalize it, self-perception and your actual, like, what components make you up, which is like very varied. I think people are like a mosaic of their experience, like a lot of different factors. You can key in an individual ones that make an impact, for example, but when you view it large scale, it makes the person. That's what I think identity is.
What about you, Kat?
Kind of in line with what Vier is saying.
Okay.
I think our identity is based on who we're born as, but that gets influenced by our different experiences that we experience, the people we are exposed to, and the things we're exposed to.
Okay. Well, adding on to that, do you think these pronouns help foster individual identity, Kat?
Yes, I suppose so, since pronouns it's a way of referring to someone, so if you base it on their identity, then yes.
So do you think these the preferred pronouns, like for example the they themselves, the they or theirs or neopronouns, do you think these also help build individual identity towards these people?
Well, in the context that say a biological man would ask to be referred to as with the pronouns she, her, for example.
Okay.
I personally don't think that helps a person's identity, because this is contrary to truth, reality. Regardless of what you want reality to be. So I think because it goes against truth, it doesn't help a person's true identity.
Okay. Vier, do you wanna add anything onto that?
Oh yeah, I think I'm trying to wonder how what's this preferred pronouns might. Sorry, what is the phrasing of the question?
Do you think these preferred pronouns help foster the individual identity besides like he, she, him? Yeah.
I believe that there's like to a certain extent they should be encouraged, but it's again like I also agree with Kat in the line that it should be more in line
Limited.
with what the
Oh,
truth
okay.
is rather than what the preference is. But it just so happens that for like the way I view things after having research is that when we're talking about gender, self-identification is a big thing to take into account, which is why like preferred pronouns are a thing. But I just because I do believe that like preferred pronouns are. Except I don't believe that everyone can identify as anything they want.
Yeah.
That's not my belief. It's just that, I guess it can help foster personal identity, but it should be in line with the truth.
The truth.
I was gonna go more in that, but I think that we have like topics for later, so I don't want to like.
No, that's
hop forward
actually
in the
interesting
discussion.
because when you mentioned the truth, Kat mentioned biology. So in your perspective, does biology like count as the truth
I
of the
believe
person?
biology is a truth.
Okay.
I think the first
So it's
thing,
one of many truths.
It's
Is
one of
that what
many
you-
truths, and
okay.
it's hard because you have to like distinguish what knowledge, knowledge, information, truth. There's a lot of like nuances in trying to define each one specifically. But the thing I like to do when someone like asks me, for example, about gender theory, the very first thing I do is delineate sex and
Okay.
gender. And usually sex refers to all your like biological makeup, what
Biological
genitalia
makeup.
you have, your set of hormones. I know there are lots of people who lie in the spectrum, even in terms of like biological makeup. There are people who are hermaphrodites,
Mm-hmm.
people whose genealogy doesn't exactly align with their genitalia. And then gender more refers to the social conditioning, the gender dynamics, the dynamics between like a male and female that like has been institutionalized or has been born out of like centuries. And one way you can actually see this, that way we're like subtly looking at gender as more cultural and social rather than purely biological, is that in movies with robots, we naturally refer to robots as she and her, or he and him, despite the fact that they have no genitalia. In Wall-E, we call Wall-E he and him,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't have like genitalia. So why do we call him he him? It's because of the way he socializes, interacts. We subtly gender that as male for some reason.
Okay.
And I think that's indicative of the fact that we view gender and pronouns as more tied to culture and socialization rather than it is tied to biology. Not to say that biology has like part in it, because I do
Yeah.
believe it does, but I don't think it is constrained by it or hard defined by it.
Well,
Yeah.
Kat, since you also mentioned a lot about biology, do you think it's the only truth, or are there other truths towards that?
Well, it depends on the context, really. But I guess I can say that it's gender identity is based on your biological sex, in the sense that
So you
Um,
think, sorry, just to clarify, sex and gender aren't two different things.
they are.
Okay.
as, sex is your biological
Biological.
sex, and gender is like the stereotypes that we have in society. But I think one issue that we have to clarify, at least with what I believe in, is that, for example, a biological woman is a woman is a biological woman with any personality, and a man is a biological man with any personality. So with the gender stereotypes, it tends to get confusing, and so someone who, let's say, feels a biological woman, for example, who feels that she doesn't really conform to the female gender stereotypes might identify as a man, but in reality, you're
Still
you're,
a woman.
You're still a woman, even if you have a personality that doesn't conform to the stereotype.
That's interesting. And I think we can build upon that and what Vier said on the social norms. So like for example, transgender people, right? That's what you said. A biological woman, building upon the personalities of a man, is still identified as a man. Sorry, as a woman. Sorry, as what you said. So, in the sense of self, is it also determined by the social factors? So, for example, you said that even though he may act like a man, or has more masculine personality, he is still a woman.
Yeah, still a woman if that's what your biological sex says.
Okay, and Vier, do you want to add
Oh,
up
yeah.
on that?
I'm curious, just because like I'm not sure always like what the other perspective says about this, but what's the what is my question? Oh my
What are
gosh,
the
I
other
forgot it.
perspectives?
No,
Or the other
it's like
truth?
I was confused about, or not confused. I wanted to clarify what the benefit was of then like dividing, like having those two terms differently, gender and sex, if in the end you believe that gender is still based on sex.
It's based on it, but it isn't it.
Oh, like I can. Sorry, how did
Gender-
you define gender? earlier?
Gender is like the stereotypes.
personality,
in
yeah,
Oh, the
society,
stereotypes.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
like the female stereotypes, male stereotypes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. I had another question, but I forgot it. Maybe I'll remember it later in the middle of the podcast, and I'll like
Okay.
type up.
Well, Vier, you also mentioned the relationships of like these people. So, for example, like robots, like in Wall-E, right?
Yeah.
They they interact with humans, but they still, or like for us, our relationship with them, we like, for example, Eve is a woman to us,
Yeah.
or Wall-E is a man to us.
Yeah.
How can you like
Elaborate on that.
elaborate
Yeah.
on that? Yeah.
It's well, I don't know. It's interesting. I think, well, for example, the way they designed the characters, I think they tried to use things that we associate more with masculinity, femininity. Like they made Eve very sleek, very I don't know, just very sleek. Had a higher voice, was more
Okay.
like put together, more like perform. I don't know. And then Wally, they gave him the equivalent of like a squeaky man voice, which is very cute. They made him clunkier. and I think even the trailers refer to it by he, and all of those things are at least indicative of the fact that we associate certain notions, certain concepts, certain appearances. We already gender them in our mind. And that's just indicative of the fact that gender refers to lots of those concepts that are tied, like kind of like grouped almost, and then even in like the dynamics and the way they interact, because they were in a romance. Well, very cute. And the roles that they took up within a romance.
So wait, just to stop you there, let's put it in a real world context, right? So for example, a biological woman is transgender into a man. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
So transgender man.
Transgender man.
How do you negotiate that relationship with other people then?
Negotiate a relationship? What do you mean?
How do you think is that relationship with other people? Like, for example, in the sense of transgender, right? You have the Olympics, and there's the biological factors, but there's also the social factors. Do you think they should compete? Do you think they have an advantage, and etc.?
Yeah, this topic, I know, is always a bit contentious. But the thing because for me, it's really nuanced, and you really have to. What I want to be done here is like I really hope people do an honest research to see if like biological males really have like much of a competitive advantage in terms of their biological makeup, and if so, should that be a factor? Because for example, in basketball, some people are naturally taller than other people. Should they be disqualified from playing basketball? So you have to look at first of all, do a heavy research on like the actual like sexual differences, and if that's gonna be affecting the sport itself. Second of all, make sure you're not being hypocritical. Look at other sports, because for example, isn't there Michael Phelps whose feet are like webbed or something, or some swimmer his feet are webbed? Should he be disqualified because his biological makeup allows him an advantage at swimming? But yeah, it's definitely not something I have an answer to, because it's a lot of like
it's a lot of research.
Yeah, so you prefer to be a woman.
It depends on the context.
It's not something I have like a final say on. I'm not a sports researcher.
Kat, do you have any comments on that?
I'm kind of on Vier with that. I don't have really researched into this, and I think it's really important that it is researched about like the effects, and like they could do tests on how much you're like.
Does it give you an advantage?
Yeah, does it give you an advantage or not? But one thing I'd like to note is that most sports, I think, are divided between men's sports and women's sports, and I think that there's no need to say if you become transgender, there's no need to go into the other category other than your biological sex, because there's already a division for you, so there's no need to cross over. But yeah, they should do research into the.
But then, like, for example, like Vier said, like there are like tall women. Can't they compete in like, for example, a tall woman becomes a man? Can't they compete in the men's sport?
But there is already a category for women in basketball, so there's no need for it. Because there are short and tall people in basketball, so how do I say this? There's no need to have another category, to switch categories, I think.
Okay. To expound on that, what do you think is the extent then of these relationships of these people with other people? So for example, if I identify as like a they them, what is the extent I can put this on other people?
Okay, so honestly, I think that it's important that people respect each other, right? So for example, you would want me to call you they them, right?
Yeah.
But personally, I wouldn't want to do that, because I feel that that's contrary to the truth, and by doing so, I'd be in a sense lying. So while I would respect your beliefs,
I identify as a they them,
but I'd also hope that you would respect me too, and not sort of force me also to call you by that. So what I would personally do is to avoid calling you pronouns at all. So I would just call you by my name.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
that's a good compromise.
I hope that this wouldn't affect our friendship in any way.
Well, Vier, what about you?
I'm kind of like, I understand Kat's point. It's hard because every person will, to an extent, act in the truth that they believe is true, and we're people. Most people believe in very different truths. So it's hard to like reconcile when people believe in different things. Yeah. For me, usually I leave it up to the context and the person. Like for me, like usually I'm understanding if people don't use my correct pronouns, because I mean I grew up in a very Catholic household. I understand lots of times the philosophy that they come from, like as a humanities major, and I study that thing, I understand where they're coming from. So I don't.
So like your family, they don't call you by your pronouns.
Technically, hi guys. I'm technically not out to them about it. So my parents watch this.
Hi
It'll be,
parents.
hi mom, hi dad.
This is Vier's coming out video.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind. 'Cause, I mean, I've had many
Okay.
conversations with them about these issues, and I can remain objective about it. Personally, I'm okay with being friends with people who wouldn't use it correctly, which maybe my therapist would be mad about. But I'm okay with it as long as they respect me as a person. As long as they don't do anything to degrade my person. But I know that other people are really uncomfortable because I can understand how it's a very sensitive topic for them, and I understand that they don't want to be friends with people who don't call them by their correct pronouns.
So you think you shouldn't impose your truth, like your preferred pronouns on other people?
I prefer not to, but I think that's because of my personality. It's not like a statement I'm saying largely about the truth. I don't know actually. Should I? I don't think truth should ever be imposed. I think truth should be learned. That's why it's important to have discussions like this and debates.
Okay.
So I don't believe in imposing a truth, but I prefer.
But do you think? But don't you think that imposes on their identity as a person then?
No, I think that sometimes it means that they're acknowledging that I believe a certain thing, and when they speak to me, that they're acknowledging that they're acting within that paradigm of I believe something. But I wouldn't mind if they wanted to talk to me about it, if they wanted to debate me about it. I have a few friends who don't necessarily respect my pronouns, but we're still friends. We have boundaries.
Okay.
But I understand, that they believe a certain thing, and I respect that too. So I'm not gonna.
Does this affect your relationship with your friends to a certain extent?
To a certain extent, it does. But
Okay.
I mean, we still have mutuals. We still, it's not like we beat each other up. Yeah, it affects it to an extent. I know we can't attain a certain amount of closeness because they don't fully understand what I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, but I like to be friends with people, so I'm all good about it.
Do you have any more comments on that?
No, I'm good.
All right. Let's move on to our second topic regarding the context of the university. So the first topic, we talked about a very niche, a very broad sense in the very real world. But now we're gonna move on to the context of the university, and the first subtopic that I'd like to talk about is recognizing people's pronouns. As we recognize people's pronouns, how should bathrooms be segregated? Because you see in malls and work offices, these are slowly being implemented, right? So you think the university should implement these kinds of segregated bathrooms, like unisex bathrooms, right? That are open to everyone.
Yeah, personally, I think you already know what I'm going to say. But I think it's really dangerous to implement that because I really do think that we should always base what we do on truth. And
Okay.
If we don't base it on people's biological sex, it gets dangerous because then people can really just choose to identify as whatever. And if we just have one bathroom, it'll
Well, what about intersex people, right? Or
intersex
unique?
people.
Yeah.
Intersex.
Intersex meaning they both, hermaphrodites.
Is that the correct term? I don't know if that's correct.
People having
you have to
two genitalia.
We understand that they're the exception to the norm. So if we have a student who's intersex, then we can cater to that, but we shouldn't make the general populace cater to the exception. Get what I'm saying? Yeah.
Okay.
It's like how sorry, but I'll just try to give an example. There are people who are blind, but we don't have Braille everywhere. But in necessary places, we do have Braille. Not here, but in Europe, for example, they have Braille on the floor of the roads so that blind people can navigate. But we don't. It's not necessary to put it all over the world. If we did have the resources to do so, then maybe that would be nice.
All right. What about you, Vier?
Lovely. 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 Sorry.
It's
For
okay.
the
It's
audience
okay.
out there, it's a condition. Okay. Lovely. I don't know actually. Wow, my long-awaited answer. I don't know. It's difficult because
Do you prefer not to talk about it?
Oh no! It's
Okay.
not that. It's just
Yeah.
that there's a lot of factors to take into account. Personally, I think the system.
What factors? Yeah.
What factors is that part of me obviously is gonna worry about sexual harassment if we make a gender neutral bathroom because I would like to believe in the goodness of people. But I know that there are people out there who might possibly there's a potential that they would take advantage of that, and then
We just put a camera then.
in bathrooms, it's not illegal to put a camera in
Never,
bathrooms. Let me just go to the bathrooms. Problem solved. No, yeah, there's like issues with like sexual harassment, and also just like, I don't know. I feel like bathrooms are some weird like safe space for like gendered people. You know, like guys go there and they're like, "Hey, fatty,"
Oh, yeah.
jokes, and the girls go there to do makeup together.
Mm.
But I also acknowledge that like there are people who wouldn't be comfortable going to male. I just think we should have a nice
common
additional gender neutral bathroom. Also because I think universities and malls can just always use more bathrooms. So like I would just add like a nice, just like a little gender neutral, like just a small one, just because.
So,
Yeah.
like, for example, transgender people, they would only use that bathroom. Are they allowed to use, like, male or female bathrooms?
Yes, I think so.
Yes, to
I'm
what
trying to
statement?
remember. Yes, I think that they should be allowed to use like the bathroom of the preferred sex.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember what. Shucks, it's back in my memory. I saw some posts about this,
Mm.
but my belief there is that like usually, like I don't think there are many cases wherein like for example a transgender, someone claiming to be a transgender woman has used the bathroom to harass, other woman. I don't think there are many cases like that, and especially I don't think. Well, I hope that the university doesn't foster that type of attitude, and
Okay.
even then, like most men, I don't think many men are willing to like express themselves femininely just so they can get into a female bathroom, and I think that likelihood is very low. And I believe that if it does happen, we should accommodate that.
Okay.
But I don't believe there's a high likelihood. At least not in UA&P. I really hope not in UA&P.
All right. Do you have any more comments, Kat,
Yeah,
regarding that? Well, Kat, you mentioned back then that, for example, your statement or your stance on like transgender people or people who identify as like their preferred pronoun, they should stick to their team, their respective team in their sports. So, in the context of PE classes and sports teams in the university, do you still think that's applicable?
Yes, most definitely. I think even more in this case than what we talked about earlier, because PE isn't a competition, so
Yeah.
there's no need
There's
to
no
win.
need. Okay.
And so I think at least as a girl myself, it's more comfortable having it segregated rather than having it all mixed. And also there's the point that men and women are really biologically different, and so usually, but not all the time, definitely not all the time, men tend to be stronger than girls in certain aspects physically. And so if we had mixed PE classes, us girls, we might have a hard time if we have the same things to do. So I actually think that it wouldn't be fair in the sense that, equity, not necessarily equality.
But then in the sense of PE classes, you're most likely looking at the individual self, right?
Yes.
So doesn't it not matter also if we have segregated PE classes?
You mean not segregated PE classes?
Oh yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
not segregated PE classes.
Actually, I think it would matter because the thing is, we do our, at least in my PE classes I've had so far, we do our exercises together, and so if you're being left behind or something, you'll really feel left out because you'll see that you're not.
But then that's more on the individual, not more on
Yes.
their like how they identify themselves, right?
Yes, but it's there are differences, biological differences between male and female. So
Okay.
sorry, I'm not getting your question.
Sorry. Like since they're not competing compared to a sports team, right?
Mhm.
You're mostly focusing on yourself. Why does it matter, right? If it's more like an individual, like a very one-on-one. So if, for example, if they're being left behind, that has nothing to do with how they're called, their preferred pronouns. That's more on like their biological self, right?
Okay.
Oh, what do you
I
mean?
got it.
No, go
Oh,
on.
okay.
Okay,
I think I got it now. I think it's more of an issue of how people are comfortable. It's like the same with the bathroom issue. Like, it's what Vier was saying earlier. It's kind of like a safe space to have your PE segregated, and people would generally feel more comfortable, at least from what I know from my friends and personally also, if
Okay.
it's segregated.
Do you have any comments on that, Vier?
Yes, I think. Well, one thing to just correct my earlier statement about the bathroom. What was I gonna say about that? Oh gosh. I think I was gonna say, yeah, acknowledge the safe space, but I'm not making a statement about bathrooms, so sorry. Yeah. Second thing was the PE. I get it because like it's hard for like an educational system considering they have to take into account like what's your standard for grading people, and there are like sexual like biological differences.
Okay.
But I think there has to be research
regarding that.
Yeah.
If it'll affect.
if it'll affect. But I think if we're looking at, for example, like personal trainers and like PE,
Yeah.
like if you're talking about like the personal progression in PE,
Mm.
and I think that part it's okay to not make too much of a
Too much of
distinction.
fun. Yeah.
Because
Okay.
I think you know because every day every start of the PE sem I think we have like a whole like measure your height, your BPI, and all that, and that kind of shapes how the coach is gonna measure your progression. And in that case, we're looking at highly like specific, contextualized biological makeup.
Yeah.
So I think that actually trumps the sexual difference
Okay.
thing.
Well, moving on to that, this is our last topic, so we're over time already. What do you think there should be disciplinary offenses if someone is offended if you don't use their preferred pronouns?
Do you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first.
Mm.
I think that there should most definitely not be any because, as I said earlier, mutual respect. So
Mhm.
if you want to be called by those pronouns, like I'll tell you what I think, but I will not contest. Like you can do that, but I would prefer for someone not to impose for me to do something
Okay.
contrary to my beliefs. So I have my beliefs and you have your beliefs.
So you
And
think
so-
we should just fight it out?
No.
Maybe it's back.
Mutual respect.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that people can still be friends
Yeah.
despite this.
Or if, for example, they're not friends. Like,
I mean,
I have
like,
very different beliefs, you have very different
we can
beliefs.
still
Yes.
coexist.
Okay. Yeah. What about you, Vier?
Yeah, I think on this one I'm pretty in line with Kat. I don't think there should be disciplinary like what do you call it?
Offense.
Offenses because I think that like to an extent a school should just be a place where people can learn themselves, and once you start like imposing disciplinary offenses for like for example not
Yeah.
respecting someone's pronouns, oh gosh, I'm gonna be cancelled for this. But yeah, I think that kind of implies like underlying that fact is the fact that there's an implication that it's the implication of an enforced belief system, and I think that the school should more foster the type of place where people can discover the truth rather than impose a rule that's like imposing a certain truth.
So you think, for example, if someone gets offended that you don't use a certain pronoun, they shouldn't be prioritized over like the person who didn't say their preferred pronoun.
Well, I
Or
think you should bring the
something like
offense up, but I don't think that there should be like a set like, oh, you're going to detention for not using this person's pronouns. I think it should just be brought up, and the two people should be able to talk it out, as like any civil people would do. But then again, yeah, it is a contentious topic because, yeah, everyone will say that their truth is the truth that they believe is the actual truth because that's kind of the nature of truth.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's complicated, but I don't think there should be disciplinary offense, at least not within the current context of how things work, because that would be very, very. I think that would spark more conflict than is worth. But I believe that the conversation should be had.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to that, Kat?
Just really quick, I
Yeah,
think
sure.
that's really important that, especially in the university,
Yeah.
in universities, that freedom is really important, especially
Okay.
at this age, so that it's time for us to learn. And I think it's better to err on the side of freedom than risk imposing something that's actually wrong or harmful.
Okay. I think to wrap up our discussion, we talked about social norms and more on biological factors, right, affecting the person's gender and the relationship it has with other people, right? And for the university context, I think you guys said that the discussion should be brought up, but there shouldn't be any necessary action yet.
Well, I think there should be action. I just don't think there should be disciplinary offense.
Disciplinary offense, yeah.
Because, practically speaking, it's gonna cause a lot of.
But it
hubbub.
depends on the context also. Right.
I think I don't think disciplinary. It depends on the context. I mean, yeah, I guess like not.
Oh no,
in the
like for
context of-
example, PE classes and sports teams.
Oh,
it depends
those
on
things.
yeah,
Yeah,
depends on the context.
yeah. I'm sorry. I know lots of my answers are like, oh, depends on context. It's the same answer, but I think that's really what it is because
Yeah.
the thing about gender studies is that it's a relatively contemporary topic to be studied. it's not as established as other topics in like philosophy, like nihilism and stuff like that. We don't have like great old thinkers.
Yeah.
So a lot of research and a lot of like context, case to case basis needs to be involved, I think.
Okay. Do you have anything to add, Kat?
No.
All right. I guess that wraps up our discussion for today. Thank you guys for listening to our, I don't know what episode this is for the bosun. But yeah. Also follow us on our Facebook page at Bosun UAP, and yeah, we'll see you in the next episode. Bye, guys.
Yeah.
I was waiting for so long.